Hello everyone, this is Ankur Budiraja, Assistant Professor at the Department of Management Studies, JIMS Greater Noida. I shall be taking up the subject called Production and Operations Management, which is paper code BBA 303 of the IP University's course curriculum. Before I start with the syllabus and before I start with the meaning and the understanding of what production and operations management is all about, I have a question for everyone. Have you ever wondered or have you ever tried rather using raw sugarcane to sweeten your sweets or raw sugarcane juice to sweeten your tea or milk or coffee? Or have you ever tried wrapping your body with raw cotton? Or have you ever tried covering your feet with raw leather available directly from the animal skin? I think the answer to all these three questions is possibly no. That means we cannot actually use raw material or any material or commodity in its raw form directly for our ultimate consumption. For that, we need certain processes and we need certain functions and activities that have to convert this raw material or these raw materials into final products or utilities that can help in direct satisfaction of human needs and wants. Therefore, this subject, production and operations management, directly and largely deals with this phenomenon only. Taking you through the agenda of the session today. In this session, I shall be covering meaning, nature, objectives, scope, and importance of production and operations management. Moving on to the meaning of production and operations first. Everybody knows production is creating something. It's a process of converting input into output. Now, as I gave examples in the beginning, input usually is in the form of raw materials and semi-finished goods, which are unfit for direct consumption of any human being. Therefore, we have a process called production or manufacturing that converts this raw form of commodity into output, which has some value added to it and therefore is fit for consumption. As I mentioned, production essentially involves adding value to raw materials or semi-finished goods, therefore making them ready for ultimate use. And operations refer to a set of functions, activities, and processes that are undertaken to support production of any kind of output. That means production and operations go hand in hand and cannot be separated from each other. Operations without any production motive or production plan are useless, while production is dependent clearly on operations. Therefore, the subject is production and operations management. Moving on. Now, what is production and operations management? As the term management has been added to simple terms production and operations, therefore, it becomes a managerial process that is concerned with conversion of input into outputs, using physical resources so as to provide the desired utilities or output to the customers while meeting the other organizational objectives of effectiveness, efficiency, and profitability. Now, if I divide or understand this definition, I have four major aspects to be understood. The first one, production and operations management is concerned with conversion. That means it is a conversion process. It translates raw inputs or semi-finished inputs into outputs, also known as the final products. Now, it uses physical resources. When I talk about physical resources, I talk about the tangible resources, including our machines, raw material, and our people. All of them are involved in the conversion of inputs into outputs. Third aspect, to provide desired utilities to the customer. Now, when I talk about desired utilities, I mainly talk about goods and services that are produced as output and as the end result of the process of productions and operations. And last but not the least, which is very essential, while meeting the other organizational objectives of effectiveness, efficiency, and profitability. We all know every organization, whether service organization or manufacturing organization, will have to have the ultimate goal of attaining some profits. And while I talk about effectiveness and efficiency, I should be clearly mentioning effectiveness is qualitative in nature, while efficiency is quantitative in nature. So for example, when I create or manufacture, let us say a car, so the effectiveness of car will be measured in terms of the qualitative parameters of a car. That means the comfort level, the aesthetics and beauty, the color, the combinations of upholstery used inside the car, etc. While if I talk about efficiency, I will talk about the fuel efficiency, or how many kilometers I am traveling or I can travel with the help of a particular car with certain quantity of petrol or diesel or fuel. So effectiveness, efficiency, and profitability are real objectives of any organization. Now on the screen, you can see certain definitions given by some very important experts who have contributed greatly to the field of production and operations management. I have taken two important definitions. One is by E.S. Buffa and the other is given by Joseph Monks. So if I talk about Buffa's definition, he has defined production management as a decision-making process related to production so that the resulting goods and services are produced according to certain specified specifications in the amount and by the schedule demanded and out of minimum cost. So this definition now brings new light or light to certain new aspects of production management. It talks about certain specifications which are predetermined. Obviously, we cannot create any output without defining any specifications or any physical and aesthetic specifications of the output. We need to already have a plan of that, and then production management makes sure that the output created is as per the standard specifications already defined before the production took place. Then in the amount, that is the quantity to be produced, and by the schedule demanded, that means as per the timetable or as per the time of delivery, and out of minimum cost. And the ultimate aim is efficiency, that is reducing the cost so that maximum output can be created. While I talk about Joseph Monk's definition, he has defined operations management as the process whereby the resources flowing within a defined system are combined and transformed by a controlled manner to add value in accordance with the policies communicated by the management. Now, this definition brings another aspect to production and operations management, and that is defined system. In future slides, in further slides, in forthcoming slides, we will study production and operations management as a system also. It is truly a system because it has its own subparts which are interrelated to each other. Moving on, I have a diagrammatic representation of what production management looks like. So if I talk about the input, I talk about the capital, entrepreneur, land, labor, and raw materials, which are made to undergo a transformation process where our machines and processes work together to create the output, which is goods and services. So goods and services, of course, is the positive and desired output, but we all know when machines function and factories work, we have an output which is unwanted, and that's called environmental pollution of various kinds. So that is why environmental pollution is also shown in the picture. And then, of course, there is a system of control or a control mechanism controlling the input, the transformation processes, and the output, because I mentioned in one of the definitions that it is done in a controlled environment. Now we talk about the nature of production and operations management. I have several points. Before beginning with 4 major points, I will be giving a quick list of the characteristics of production and operations management. Many people have called it as a managerial function. It is a conversion process. It is oriented towards quality and quantity both. It creates output. It leads to customer satisfaction, and many such points are there. So on these slides, I have taken 4 major aspects that define the real nature of production and operations management. The first one is production and operation as a system. I just mentioned in the previous slide that production and operation works like a system. That means the production and operations department is a total system which has some interrelated elements or subsystems, which are inputs, conversion process or transformation process, outputs, transportation and storage subsystems, communication subsystems, control and decision-making subsystems. All of these subsystems are the subparts or elements working together in an interrelated manner so that the total production system works effectively and efficiently. So one of the points that defines the nature of production and operations management is that it is a system. The second aspect defining the nature of production and operations management is that it is an organizational function. My commerce students and commerce background students will be having an idea that there are 4 major functional areas of any organization, starting with marketing, HR, finance, and operations or production. Therefore, production and operations is essentially one of the important functional areas of an organization, especially if the organization is dealing with manufacturing processes. That means it is as important as any other functional department as marketing, HR, finance, research and development, etc. Therefore, productions and operations department or function is one of the major functional areas of organizations. The third aspect talks about production as a conversion or transformation process. Yes, indeed, production and operations is the core of a production system. The conversion is core of a production system because it consists of processes, activities, and functions where workers, materials, machines, equipment are used to convert inputs into outputs. So I will rather say any production and operation department or a concept of production and operation department will be incomplete if I don't mention conversion or transformation as a subsystem or element of this total system. Moreover, this conversion or transformation process may include activities or processes like cutting, drilling, machining, welding, painting, dyeing, packaging, etc. All of these activities will be studied later on as a part of the syllabus. Coming to the last but very important aspect defining nature of production and operations management is that it is a means of creating utility. Every business usually creates some output. And if I talk about specifically a manufacturing concern, it is concerned about, or it is always involved in creating 3 types of utilities. all of them have the power of satisfying human needs. During the process of conversion of raw materials into finished goods, various types of utilities are created while adding value to the output. Now, these are form utility. As I already explained you, I have to have refined sugar to make my desserts, my tea, coffee, or milk sweet. So I cannot use raw sugarcane juice or raw sugarcane pieces to sweeten my desserts. I have to change the form of the raw material to the finished goods or output to make it usable and fit for consumption. So when I talk about form utility, I talk about adding form value or value addition in terms of form, or changing the form of the raw material into finished goods so that it can satisfy my consumption needs. Then is place utility, the function of transportation, which is another subsystem of the total production and operations system, creates place utility. That means goods are produced, commodities are manufactured and are kept in the factory or warehouses. Now from there, they have to reach to the markets so that they can be bought by the ultimate consumers or customers. So the transportation subsystem or transportation function of production and operations management deals with physical movement of goods or commodities from the factory or warehouses to the markets where consumers or customers can go and buy directly. So this place gap or geographical gap is abridged by place utility, done by or taken care of by the transportation function of production and operations management. Then we talk about time utility, which is actually created by the warehousing function of production and operations management. Say, for example, there is a time gap between the production and consumptions of commodities, and this is but natural. If I want to have sweaters available or woolen clothes available in the market, I cannot actually, as a manufacturer, produce the woolen clothes in the month of November and December only. I will have to produce them or manufacture them at least 3, 4, 5 months before. Now, when I have already produced the output, I need to make sure that the output is kept and stored in a safe and secured way. Now, when I talk about storage, that storage problem or issue is taken care of by the warehousing function. Therefore, the time gap between the production and consumption of output or commodities is abridged by warehousing function of production and operations management. Moving on to the subtopic called objectives of production and operations management. Now there are some objectives, very important objectives of production and operations. If we see maximum customer satisfaction through quality, reliability, cost, and delivery. That means it aims at producing the optimum quality, reliable goods and services which are safe and customer can bank upon them, and cost effective in nature, and delivered at the right time whenever demand arises on part of consumers or customers. That means the first objective is to aim at maximum customer satisfaction through best of quality, high levels of reliability, minimum cost, and the best delivery time or the right delivery time. Next point, to attain the objective of minimum scrap or redundancy, resulting in better product quality. That means every production and operations system will aim at minimum wastages occurring in the factory or the plant. Third, to have optimum inventory levels wherein the inventory, there is no shortage of inventory, neither there is a shortage of inventory, nor the inventory is lying unused as a waste. Shortage of inventory will lead to stoppage of the processes, while inventory more than the required levels will make the whole warehouse or factory as a graveyard. Next is maximum utilization of all kinds of resources. So when I talk about all kinds of resources, I talk about my machines, my money, material, that is raw material, my men, and my processes. So all human and non-human, or physical and human resources, should be optimally utilized without their exploitation and without leading to their problems. My machines should not be kept unused. Unused machines may lead to dead assets. Similarly, the skills of my capabilities of my human resources should be optimally used so that they are also giving the best output and they are also kept satisfied. The next point is to have maximum possible production and higher operating efficiencies. That means reducing the wastages and increasing the output or the quantity of output with minimum inputs is called operating efficiency. And that comes only when the processes are streamlined, workers are trained, and there are infrastructural support in the factory. Then reducing the production cycle time. Higher the production cycle time means there are some loopholes in the production processes. More the production cycle time will lead to late deliveries in the market. Now, therefore, a good production and operations management system will have one of the major objectives of reducing the production cycle time. Moving on, attaining maximum possible profit or return on investment. Every businessman has this kind of perception that his business will render him or fetch him good return on investments. Now, when I talk about investments in a production and operations system, investments are made in training people and giving them skills, obtaining raw material, and investments are also made in machines and equipment that are involved in conversion of goods, raw materials into final product. The next is concern for protection of environment. In modern times, factories and plants and every production and operations management system will definitely have the objective of environmental sustainability and reducing the degradation of environment because of their activities. And the last but not the least, it's a long-term and ongoing objective, that is maximum possible productivity. That means making the plant or the total system of production so sustained and so efficient that over the years it leads to maximum productivity with minimum inputs. So these were some very important objectives of production and operations management. Moving on, I will talk about the scope of production and operations management. If you can just see this diagram, you will understand there are so many activities that are covered or fall under the domain of production and operations. Say, for example, we have location of facilities, we have plant and material handling, we have decisions related to product design, we have decisions related to process design, we have production planning and control, we have to control the quality in the factory, then we talk about material management, then we also talk about maintenance management. All of these activities form the scope of production and operations management. A quick gist at the scope again. So location of facilities, like every production and operation manager has to take decisions related to plant location. There are several options available, but he has to make the right decision dependent on several parameters. So one such activity falls under the scope of production and operations management is location of plant or location of facilities. Then plant layout and material handling. Inside the plant, how will the machines be arranged? How will the machines be organized? And how will the plant look like this decision is also very important for effective and efficient functions of production and operations department. Then the product design decisions. So this is also a point of scope of production and operations management, because such managers have to understand what will be the final output and how will it look. So when I talk about product design, there are several decisions, sub-decisions, and parameters to be considered while finalizing the product design. Then the process design, how will the manufacturing process having sub-processes will be arranged and organized. Then production planning, production and planning control, that is, how will the production be controlled? How will my material or inventory will be controlled and managed? Then is quality control, making sure that the output is of specified quality. Then materials management, from where the material has to be procured, where it has to be kept, how will it has to be dealt with, etc. All these decisions are material decisions or material related decisions. And then last but not the least is maintenance management, how the plant has to be maintained in an overall sense, how the machines have to be maintained so that there is no malfunctioning of the machinery, no breakdown of the machinery, and therefore there are no problems in the plant. All these activities are actually the functions of any production and operations manager and fall under the scope of this discipline. Now, the last topic for this session is functions of production and operations management or manager. I have divided the functions into two parts. If you can see on the screen, the first category is managerial functions, which are the functions of any production and operations manager. And second are routine or operational functions, which we have already discussed in scope of production and operations management, but we will revise them again. So moving on to category A, every production and operations manager has to plan, organize, direct and motivate, control, and make decisions. Now, what is planning? Planning in terms of production and operations management. Every production and operations manager has to plan about where to locate the plant, how will the plant look like, or plant layout will look like, from where raw material has to be procured, how will the product be looking like, what all machines have to be ordered, and where are these machines to be installed, what sub-processes are to be involved in production system, etc. So all such planning related to input, output, and processing is to be done beforehand by every manager involved in production and operations. Second is organize. Such a manager has to organize all such resources, men, money, material, machines, processes, and has to bring them under one roof called factory or plant so that conversion process can effectively and efficiently handled. Then a production and operation manager is also expected to give directions and supervision to his supervisors and workers. He also has to undertake motivational practices, because production and operations therefore may become a very mundane and boring job. So every time or cyclically, a production and operations manager has to motivate his workers and laborers. Then controlling. Such a manager has to develop a foolproof controlling mechanism so that there are least number of wastages of every kind in the plant. He also has to keep a check on the functions and activities of his workers and supervisors so that there is no wasteful activity happening in the plant and efficiency increases day by day. And last but not the least, very important function is decision making. A production and operations manager has to take really important and strategic decisions related to plant layout, plant location, raw material procurement, material management, how the processes have to be combined together so that the total production system goes efficient, etc. There are several options available with every production manager. But then there are certain parameters and guidelines and factors that affect the decisions of every production manager. Good decisions will lead to ultimate objective of growth of enterprise, while bad decisions may lead to routine problems like malfunctioning of machines and long-term problems like deterioration of the business. Therefore, taking the right decision at the right time is again a very important function of a production and operations manager. Moving on to the last and the second and the last category, operational functions. A quick gist of what all decisions and functions are performed by a production and operations manager on a routine basis in his department. As I already told, he has to understand or rather take decisions related to plant layout. Now, plant layout is how machines will be placed inside the plant, what will be the space or given to the workers, how will these machines be connected to each other, how will the total plant or factory look like. All such decisions fall under the operational functions of production and operations manager. Then another function is he has to make a strategic choice of plant location. Any wrong decision related to the plant location or factory location may lead to blunders in future. So such a manager has to take wise and prudent decisions related to choice of plant location. Next is product designing. Products cannot be designed randomly without any thought process. Every product that we use today is based on a lot of hard work, planning, and right type of decisions that have been taken in the factory or in the plant before these products are actually manufactured and supplied in the market. So product designing and the factors to be considered while doing that is another function of a production and operations manager. Next function is inventory control. Too much inventory is a waste of money, and it actually makes the factory look like a graveyard. Too much inventory also involves a lot of investment of money which is stuck and is not being used. And too less inventory may also lead to shortage of material, therefore may bring the processes of production and conversion to an end. Therefore, the right kind of inventory control deals with, or inventory management deals with, or aims at having the optimum level of inventory preserved and kept in the factory. The next point, every production and operations manager has to deal with purchase of raw materials. Now, he has to finalize the sources and the vendors of raw material, keeping in mind several factors such as the budget, the quality, the quantity, the nature of output, etc. So he has to take the purchase decisions and has to undertake certain purchase processes and transactions with vendors. The next point is manufacturing and production supervision. This is but obvious. If anyone is recruited as a production manager, he has to supervise on an everyday basis the production that is happening inside the factory from the beginning to the end. The second last point is making sure that the machines are functioning properly, they are maintained, and if they are malfunctioning, then they are repaired properly. All these activities and functions are to be performed by a production and operations manager. Last but not the least, labor, which is the human resource of the production and operations department, is to be dealt with, and their problems are to be understood and solved, because since workers are very important part of production department, so they have to be kept motivated and they have to be kept happy. And every production and operations manager has to make sure that they're dealing with their problems in a very, very justified way so that they are happy and they're not creating any troubles. With this, the fundamentals of production and operations management come to an end. Thank you so much.